back at the beginning of my journey, I used washes pretty regularly to shade my miniatures. But after a while, I realized they were making my mini look worse. So I just stopped until I started experimenting a bit, and that changed everything I believed to be true about washes. So in today's video, I'm gonna show you what made me change my mind, how you can easily use them in a different way than usual, and how this will actually make you improve your skills. Before I tell you what made me change my mind about this, as someone who's been painting for over 20 years, I need to talk about what are the main issues I always add with washes. Number one, they kind of kill the vibrancy. Most of the times I use Null Oil and Agrax Earthshade all over my model, and that kind of muted my colors a lot. Number two, they are unreliable over flat surfaces, and it's so easy to run the risk of getting pooling and staining, which is ew. Number three, washes follow, well, the recesses, aka gravity, and that's not always the right place where a shadow should be. So, are they that really? I honestly thought so. I have two videos to prove that. But the truth is, washes aren't actually broken. You just need to start seeing them under a different light. And here's what opened my eyes. Introducing Fabrizio Russo. As far as I understand it, he paints by building up shadows by layering different filters with different colors. So I wondered, what if instead using a wash all over the model, I'd apply it like a filter in a very specific area of the model. Just like this miniature painting master does. It would create depth, volume, contrast. Brilliant, right? Why washes? Why not regular paints? Well, I'll give you one big reason for that. To use this technique, you gotta thin the paint a lot. It's hard to work with very thin paint. It's hard to thin them properly, to maintain the same consistency throughout the piece. It's hard to move the thin paint around the model without leaving holes. So imagine my surprise when I tried using washes for this and got stunning results. Here, the liquid talent here allows you to get rid of all this problem, focusing on just one thing. Let me show you directly how this works so you can see it for yourself and try it for yourself. And then you'll see how this will turn your old washes into intentional pro painting tools. Here I have both Null Oil and a shade from Army Painter. And even though they look pretty different, they are indeed pretty similar. So use whatever. Step one is pick up a brush full of your wash, pretty much like so, like you're seeing on screen. But then you have to wick off the excess on your finger or any other surface. Better if it's not like a paper towel that absorbs too much water. You shouldn't have visible liquid on the brush. But to know for sure that you have the right amount on your brush, you need to test it directly on a model if you're feeling brave enough, otherwise on a piece of plastic card or on a base. The mark you need to make is a very transparent. If you have too much paint, like for example this, it's gonna be harder to work with. Even though it's gonna cover pretty fast, especially compared to what we want, it's also gonna be harder to deal with without leaving holes. So yeah, keep it thin. Step two, I apply the wash in the corner of a model where I think a shaded area might be. The best practice here is to do it less brushstroke as possible, using the whole length of the brush and not just the point. Also, I try to push the pigment in the shadow by ending my brushstroke in the far corner of the shadow, because we know that the most deposit of pigment is at the end of the brushstroke. We know that, right? Please note here, I'm showing you painting multiple areas at the same time, but in reality, I'm going one area at a time with all the 3 steps. Then I very quickly move on to step 3, where I just quickly wash the brush and feather out the small line where the wash meets the base coat, smoothing everything out. Here we kind of are in the far right side of the opacity continuum, which is this chart if you never saw my video. And I never suggest to beginners and intermediate painters to try out this side of the continuum, because the thinner the paint is, the kind of hard it is to control. And this is what makes washes really great for this, because they allow you to work with thinner paint without having to deal with 3, 4, 5 different variables. It's easier to move the paint around because of the medium inside it, and for the same reason it's easier to feather it out. And finally, you don't have to deal with actually thinning the paint because you already have it pre-thinned. The only worry you have here is the brushstroke, in particular how much you load and how much pressure you put into the brushstroke, which is one of the fundamentals you absolutely must know in order to progress in your painting journey. Luckily for you, a few months ago I launched the first miniature painting course that tackles the fundamentals of painting and of blending, and I just added a brand new section on brush pressure, which is pivotal to use this technique and any other blending technique really. So check it out in the link in the description, support the channel, improve, so I can pay mortgage and stuff for the cat, because cat is expensive. And that's it. Repeat as many times as you wish. Here it was like 3 or 4 layers. Just remember to layer these filters by taking less and less space. And when you are at your final layer, you can go a little bit bolder because the space will be smaller. The smaller the area to cover, the higher the amount of pigment you can use and you can have on your brush. Also remember that with the brush stroke, you'll need to follow the shape of the surface. So it might be slightly more challenging to paint curved panels like this shoulder pad. I suggest you to start on smaller surfaces where you don't need to use multiple brush strokes. More brush strokes equals more pigment deposit, which might leave some staining. But to be honest, if you go thin and slow, this won't be very visible in the end product. For the same reason, you should also be using a bigger brush with longer bristle you can bend to follow the shape. This technique will allow you to add the fine shading that most heavy metal box art have without the hustle of having to deal with consistency. So yeah, this totally changed my mind about washes. I love them now, I guess. This is just one of the many ways you can go about blending your miniatures. And if you think that this technique, it's a little bit too slow for you, because let's be clear, this is not super fast compared to other blending techniques. So if you're curious to know which are the fastest way to blend, you should click on this playlist here. You will know everything about blending and you will become a god of blend, and I'll see you there when you're blending in what?